My name is Fran Grasso. I have worked with the USDA since 1989, so before a lot of you were even born. I started my career back then, and Bill had mentioned earlier that a lot of times you're on a farm and one person goes out to work, so there's benefits, you know, in that family. And that's pretty much what happened to me. I was married to a farmer, and it was decided that, you know, maybe we need some health benefits here. So I went to work, and the family farm continued without me, but at night, on the weekends, early in the morning, we got up and we worked before we actually went to that 40-hour-a-week job. So kind of know how that works. But I have been with the Natural Resources Conservation Service since, and have worked with them since 1999. So I'm very proud of our agency. We shorten our name and we just call ourselves NRCS because we don't want to keep repeating Natural Resources Conservation Service. It's very long. So I'm very proud of our agency. I'm very proud of what we do. Before I continue, I just want to pass the microphone over to my coworker so she can introduce herself.
Good morning. My name is Nicole Ciccaglione. I'm a district conservationist here in Burlington County. Our office is right down the road in Columbus. We cover Burlington, Camden, and Ocean counties out of our office here. I have known Fran my whole career. She was in our office. We worked together. I started in 1996. I do not have an agriculture background. I have an environmental sciences degree and came to work for the agency in 96. So I'm right up on my 20-year mark actually now. So I too am very proud of our agency. We have a lot of good technical-based people that can help you figure out what you have and where you need to go. So we're going to fill you in on that right now.
Thank you, Nick. So before we get started, just by a show of hands, could we just see who comes from or is already involved in some type of farming operation? All right, so by a show of hands, who here hopes to, you know, someday be involved in some type of farming operation? Wow, good, that's good. We like to see that. We like to see that in the Garden State, because last week, I'll just deviate just one little minute here. Last week I had the opportunity to spend 4 days. I went to a family wedding in Nebraska, and my husband, who's a farmer, we live in Hamilton, so he's a blueberry farmer. We were driving for miles and miles, and all we saw was corn and soybeans. And I mean a lot of corn, and I mean thousands and thousands of acres of corn and soybeans. Every little town we went through there, they had their own feed mill. Oh, and he kept referencing Footloose, loved it. So there were just all these feed mills, and we kept saying to each other, but what do they do anything else here but corn and soybeans? And they don't, because they don't have the resources we have here. Because Bill talked about that. All these outlets, we have New York City, we have Philadelphia, we just have all these great resources, and they don't have that in Nebraska. They have corn and soybeans because, you know, that's what they grow there, because they can't grow a whole lot of the things we can grow here because they don't have the outlets. So what our agency does is we want to protect your resources on those farms so you can keep farming in this state, keep farming, keep that ground going. So that's what we do. So who is NRCS? How do we invite? No. So who is NRCS? We're gonna go over the history of who we are and how we can help you, whether technical, conservation planning, or funding assistance. So NRCS resulted from troubled times, long time ago, back in the 30s, probably before then, but this is when we really started noticing. It's called the Great Dust Bowl. The Dust Bowl started blowing thousands upon thousands of acres of your topsoil away. So we had to come up with a solution to that problem. So the huge dust clouds carried soils hundreds of miles all the way to the Atlantic Ocean, right here where we're at. So it takes about 1,000 years to build 1 inch of fertile topsoil, and really only hours for it to blow away. So that's kind of astonishing, really. So a very smart man named Hugh Hammett Bennett came up with the idea to save our land. So that's how our agency became in existence. So since that time, NRCS has kept a commitment to protecting and conserving soil and other natural resources on private lands. So that was then, and this is now. So to the left and to the right, you're seeing the same field. You're seeing the same waterway.
So on the left, those soils are hurting. So when it rains, the water runs off and it's taking the soil with it, and it can't infiltrate. So the faster the rain, the quicker it's moving that soil. So the conservation planner who planned this farm with the farmer recommended this grass waterway, and that's the picture there on the right. So that helps convey that water. So when in significant rainstorms, which we know are happening more and more frequently, what that does is it helps stabilize and move that water without moving the soil with it. So that's the significance of that from the before to the after.
Thank you, Nick. So before Nicole starts talking about the technical aspect of our agency, just up here is where we're located. We have 6 field offices throughout the state that services every county in the state, and we have technical support offices. I come out of the Hamilton Technical Support Office. As Nicole said, she comes out of Columbus. And we also have a plant materials center down in Cape May Courthouse that does a lot of work on, I think it's dunes, grass planting, so that's very interesting too. This is a list of some of the conservation practices that we actually install to protect soil, water, air, plant, and animal resources. And with these conservation practices, a lot of times we supply financial assistance for these practices on farms. There's conservation crop rotation, residue management, riparian forest buffer, roof runoff structure, and the list kind of goes on and on. So at this point, I am going to hand the microphone over to Nicole, and she is going to start telling you guys about technical assistance that we provide.
Thank you. So we are a technical-based agency, a very science-based agency. We have a long history, and we have a lot of science behind what we recommend, what our practices are. Franny had that list of practices. That's just a snapshot of some of what we have to offer. The first thing I'm going to talk about is knowing what you have in your resources. We have our soil scientist with us today. Edwin is out in the lobby, and he has a computer set up for web soil survey. So this is just a quick overview, but if you'd like to get into it, in your packets when you registered, you have a pamphlet that gives you the step-by-step process on how to do it. It's very user-friendly. It is free. It has a shopping cart associated with it, but it's free. And if you'd like to talk to Edwin, he's out in the lobby. So this is the website. The green button obviously is how you get started. If you're considering buying a farm, if you have a farm, knowing what you have is very important. So web soil survey is a good first tool. It helps you you identify your farm, and then excuse me, that's the turquoise box there. And then what it'll do is it'll give you the information on how that land is mapped. So at some point in time, many years ago when our agency was first starting, there actually was a soil scientist that went out on all the acres in New Jersey and mapped them. So these are accurate. There's a few exceptions, but for the most part they're accurate, and it's good information. So with that, you identify your land, it'll give you a report, it'll tell you what soil types you have, some of the limitations, their capabilities, lots of good information knowing to help you figure out what crops to grow, where to grow them. Not every crop will tolerate the same moisture amount, and some soils are better at holding moisture, and some soils, like a sandier soil, does not hold any moisture or very little. So this is good information for helping you plan your business, plan your crop rotation, and even on the farm where you're going to put your crops. Depth to water table is really good. If you have a soil in an area that tends to hold soil, and that's maybe somewhere you don't want to plant a crop that doesn't like its feet wet. So there's lots of good information, to obtain here. We mentioned we're going to be on the farm, showing you a soils demonstration. The gentleman there with the soil probe, that's Fred. He is our soil scientist. We do go out to farms and actually do borings and help you figure out exactly, is your field exactly as it's mapped, and does it have any limitations? And when we do that, we give you lots of information about what you have in the soil, what's going on with the soil as far as the properties, the texture, your pH. We can help you with that. Any soil health indicators. If you have anything that you're going to need to do to prepare for whatever your future crop is. That is Edwin. He's outside. You can talk to him during the break. So we have a couple different tools, and one of them is ground penetrating radar, and he would be more than willing, I'm sure, to explain that to you. Again, it's just another tool that helps you figure out what you have and perhaps if there's something buried. Sometimes you have to find drainage tile. There's different reasons in counties where it's an issue, bedrock, that could certainly impact your operation. Another tool, Edwin brought this with him today. It's very easy, it's very fast, 60 seconds, and it can identify all of those elements in that soil. So something good if you're going into an area maybe a little bit more urban, you don't know what the history is. I know before Bill was talking about knowing the history of your site. This certainly can help you fill in some of those gaps if you don't know. So next I'm going to get into conservation planning. So we are a USDA agency. We are here to help you. Working with us is voluntary. We have soil conservationists in all of our field offices. We basically go to the farm with you. We walk the farm with you. You want to point out your concerns, and we'll help you maybe identify some that you might not have known you had. Basic conservation plan, that's the nut and bolts of what we do. All of these things listed here are what is part of a conservation plan. So we will give you aerial photos, current GIS data layers. We look at all of that and give you that information. Again, soils information. Soils is very important when knowing what you have and if you have any limitations. So our planning process has 9 steps. The first 3 are together where we will inventory everything. We'll look at your soils, we'll look at your wetlands layers, figure out some history for you, and come up with all that information, things we need to consider. Then we'll analyze all that data. We'll work with you. We'll make recommendations. You have an erosion problem, we'll give you a couple options on possibly what you would need to consider to improve that or repair that, and help you figure out what those, what's better. There's pros and cons to everything, so we'll go through that process with you. Develop that conservation plan for you as you make your decisions, and we will document it and then help you implement that plan, whether it be just technical assistance or possibly financial assistance, which we're going to talk about in a minute. And then, of course, after it's in and functioning, how's it working? Do we need to tweak something? Do we need to make another improvement? Do we need to add on something else? And so working with us, is very thorough, and we make sure that we cover everything to give you all of your options. So this is a sample plan. So there's a lot of add-ins as I'm going to click through this. So aerial photograph, it shows you the boundary of a farm. The blue line running through the farm is a stream. Summary of the acreage, what type of land uses are on this farm. This is a topo map, so another resource tool that we have. It'll give you elevations on the farm, again, the stream is mapped through the farm, and then there's a water body off to the one side. And all of this information is what you get in your conservation plan. So now this is looking at the soils, the slopes of each of those soils. You got a lot of topography on this farm. So now this is one of our GIS layers that we'll bring in. This stream happens to be mapped as a trout production stream, and then you can see the added lines on each side are the 300-foot buffers that would be recommended to help protect that stream. If you notice, there's the green layer that's over the whole farm. It's mapped as grassland habitat, and we have lots of tools, and we can help you know what potential species could be using your farm. In this case, a rank 4 is pretty high, 5 is the highest. So they are state listed birds of concern, so bobolinks, vesper sparrows, etc. So then off here, off to the side, might not be on the same farm, but it's also pointing out things that's a rank 5 for bald eagle habitat. So something to consider. If that is an interest of yours, we can certainly make recommendations to help you improve that habitat, and certainly we would not want to negatively impact if those species were in fact on the property. So it's good information, kind of puts the whole picture together for you. So next is going to get into practices. So that's a buffer along that stream. We would call that a riparian buffer. So it is a livestock operation, and that just flashed is fence, with additional fence to fence the animals out of the stream. These are waterers, so because we've now taken the cows out of their primary water source, we would recommend supplying them with water. This is actually a pond. As you can see, those cows have full access to that stream. And this is after the fence was put in. There's a crossing, and they did do a planting on those little white marks there. They're protecting the trees there. So now this is what we would call a heavy use area. That's the before. So that's a lot of damage from a lot of animals, and in not so ideal condition. And then this is the after. So we've helped this farmer with a concrete pad. We call this a heavy use area protection. So it's keeping them, sacrificing one area for this practice that is saving all of the soil and the natural resources from having that continuous damage. So it's controlling their access and their feeding on this concrete pad here. So next up, this next one is, this is the before. So a lot of times farmers who have chemicals, they tend to store, mix, load right on the soil, right on the ground. A lot of times out of convenience, right near the well. So what we have is a practice we call an agrichem handling facility, where we will design and size the facility to store those, and that concrete is sealed, so that if you do have any leaks or breakages, it will contain that chemical, whatever it is, so that you can then pump it back into another tank that's safe. And that helps keep all of that out of the groundwater. So now we get into some buffer practices. Sure. This one?
So on November 5th, just want to put a quick plug in at this farm, we're going to be visiting the facility that actually has this building that received funding
Yes.
from your agency. So I just wanted to mention that in the back of your mind.
Yes. Thank you. So this is the before picture. It's not that easy to see, but there is erosion happening in this field. And the conservation planner recommended, that's another picture of a grass waterway. So that area is in permanent grass. It's got a little bit of a shape to it, and it's basically helping convey that runoff water so it's not taking any soil with it. So now this here, this hatched area, that's an area of concern for wildlife based on that mapping. So this farmer agreed to do some wildlife habitat planting. So they took that little area and they did a permanent seeding so that whatever's in that seed mix can help provide cover and food and habitat for wildlife. So a couple cute pictures here. We have helped a lot of different farmers, and it doesn't matter whether they're, it doesn't matter how big or small, basically. So we have helped them all. This is a picture of the seasonal high tunnel. I know it's been mentioned quite a bit. We do help you with those. That helps extend your growing season. And then we have a low flow, low drift pivot. Irrigation, water is critical, and conserving water is very important. So we have quite a few practices in our toolbox that we can help you improve that water efficiency. And with that, I'm going to hand it back over to Fran.
Thank you, Nick. And I think we saw in Bill's presentation, Nick just showed us irrigation, drip irrigation, and that would be another.
So inside the farmland, there's a small stream, and if I need some crossing the stream, do I contact you to get?
Is it for equipment or is it for animals?
No, just for tractor or just for people.
You can contact us. We can help you navigate some of that to figure out how to do it and how to do it safely and legally, because that stream is most likely regulated by the DEP. So we can.
Yes.
Yeah.
I thought it's regulated by EPA, but just.
In New Jersey, it's the DEP, Department of Environmental Protection. Yep. And if yes, we can certainly help you navigate through that.
So my question is, can you help me just
As far as pay for practices, if it were for livestock, yes.
Not the livestock.
Right. But for lane maintenance and things like that. So the program would not be able to, but there might be the loan program maybe could, that Allie was talking about. But we certainly could help you technically. We could give you some recommendations on what to do and what not to do and how to work through that.
Correct, because we are definitely not a regulatory agency, but we help you comply with regulatory agency requirements. So we'll always do that. We don't, of course, we never tell anybody what to do or what they have to do, but we offer our assistance. So what programs does NRCS offer? So Nicole spoke about all these great conservation plans, but things like this are rather expensive to do on your own. So we have financial assistance programs that help offset the cost of certain practices. So we have our main program, and all these programs I'm going to talk about are nationwide. And what we do in New Jersey is we customize them for New Jersey type of agriculture, because as we know, there's all different agriculture throughout the country and different needs. So basically the requirements for the program do not change from state to state, but how we actually implement and the types of practices and the cost of those practices that we pay for absolutely do fluctuate from state to state. So in order to be eligible for one of our programs, you have to have control or own your eligible land. So you don't have to own it, but you have to be the tenant of that land. You have to have control of it. Somebody has told you, yes, you can farm this land, and this is how many years, usually called a lease, okay? We also have another requirement. It's an adjusted gross income limitation. It's a rather high number, it's $900,000. So if your adjusted gross income is over $900,000 based on a 3-year average, you can't get funding from us, but you can always get technical assistance from us. You have to be in compliance with what we call the highly erodible land and wetland conservation requirement. And if you're an entity, you have to be registered in Duns and Sams. And of course, you have to develop an NRCS plan of operations. And Nicole just talked about that. So the different types of eligible land that we have here in New Jersey are cropland, pasture land, and non-industrial private forest land, which is your forest that we have talked about. So funding is competitive. It's never easy. You're just not going to walk in and we don't blanket, like write you a check. There's definitely competitive funding. So ranking is based on the national, state, and local questions and practices based on resource concerns. So everything we do is based on a resource concern, whether it's water quality, soil erosion, air. So we take in, we look at all these different resource concerns and how are you addressing, how do you want to address those resource concerns? So all that goes into the competitive ranking process. Eligible program participants receive financial and technical assistance to implement conservation practices. Nicole just mentioned very few of the conservation practices we have. We have a long list of different conservation practices.
We have 70 pages worth of what's being offered.
There you go, long list. Payments are made to participants after conservation practices are identified, planned, and implemented. Payments are based on the quantity installed and the cost developed from a regional cost schedule. So we come up with numbers, an average of what things cost based on our region. So, I talked about Nebraska. We certainly, our cost table is not based on probably what would happen in a state like Nebraska, but rather Pennsylvania, Delaware, Maryland, within our region. Payments are determined way before installation will begin, giving you the opportunity to decide if you want to enter into that contract. So we've come out to your farm, we've done a bunch of work with you, we figured out payments, and before you're ever going to sign a contract, you're going to decide, this is something I really want to do. We look at different types of programs, or I should say fund pools within the program. We look at cropland, irrigated cropland, livestock, high tunnel, soil health, aquaculture, equine, organic, energy. We have a lot of possibilities in our agency for funding. We also have another program. It's called the Agricultural Management Assistance Program. Again, you have to control or own your own land. You have to comply with the AGI. It's the same, pretty much the same requirements as EQIP.
It does? Oh, I don't want to.
No,
But
no,
it
go
does
ahead.
target beginning farmers and people who are diversifying and just getting started. So AMA has fewer people applying, so there's less competition. So.
Correct. Thank you, Nick. And again, in AMA, we look at cropland and pasture land. We do not do in AMA, we don't do a lot of big structural practices that require engineering work because we just don't have the resources in that program that we do in EQIP. Things to remember, sign up anytime for either technical assistance or program funding. Most funding programs are competitive. Ranking period for EQIP and AMA ends early in the fall. We do have applications here. All we request is when you're applying for a program, we like you to fill out an application, and then we meet with you, and then on that meeting we decide what you're really interested in. So at time of application, you're not coming to us and saying, oh, I want to do X, Y, and Z, because you won't know until we come out to your farm and discuss that with you. Ranking is based on how the objectives meeting national, state, and local concerns and on cost efficiency. There's no minimum farm size or minimum farm income to participate with us. Participation is voluntary and non-regulatory, so we do not force anyone to participate with us. Your plan remains private and will not be shared with anyone without your consent. And again, that's where we are located in all the counties that we service. In your packets that you received at registration, I'm pretty sure that's in there. All of our locations, what we do, you know, kind of a summary of who we are. And we definitely have everything is based on percentages. So we definitely offer the beginning farmer a higher percentage than the farmer that has been farming longer than 10 years. So beginning farmer, 10 years or less.